Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. This is our weekly live. Thank you, everyone who's already in here for joining us. You'll notice that Shane and I are here. Paris will be joining in a minute. He's finishing up a podcast that we're doing simulcasting, I guess. I don't know, simultaneously. But excited to be here. So good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Good. How are you? So I missed the last one.
Me too. It was wow, guys.
It's still going. So
it's still going. When it drops, it's going to drop hard. For those of you guys who are live and listening to this now, that one's going to be. Carrie is with us. She's running for state school board, but she's just a fantastic person. But she's talking about all the different woke, crazy things that are going on in education, and it's getting weird and it's getting worse. And we've got to do more. But I digress because this episode's all about calming AF, right? Getting balance in your prepping. And that episode, I'll be honest, I'm kind of riled up. I want to go pick a fight. I'm gonna calm down. Deep breaths.
Take a break there, Scott.
Right? It's like I need to think about, like, I don't know, namaste right here and be calm. Chill and cool and calm and collected. Man, the world is just stupid, but it's also fantastic. Like, we live in a beautiful, gorgeous country with so many wonderful things, but there's so many stupid people that are trying to ruin it. And that's what's happening in every country around the world. So why do we prep? It's so we can outlast the stupidity, right? It's That's ultimately the point. And so, it's funny because, like, the last 12 weeks almost, I have been sick as a dog. You've heard it in all the prior episodes. I'd have to pause while you watch me coughing in the background. I've got some really crappy lungs, and I've been super sick. And it took 11 weeks for a doctor to actually give me the right stuff to solve my problem. And I bring this up for a reason. My first doctor that I met with said, "Oh, you need this." And I asked, "Well, what about, in my case, I wanted a Z-Pack." I'm like, "Well, can I get a Z-Pack? Because that's what knocks us out in the past." "No, we don't do those anymore because they're not effective." And I'm like, "What?" So check this out. 2 more doctors, 2 more rounds of medications. And the last one's like, "Well, based on the fact that you have lung issues and you have this and this and this, these complicated issues, you need to take a Z-Pack as well." 2 days later, after starting the Z-Pack, I'm fine.
So 12 weeks of needless.
I should have just opened my Jace case, pulled out a Z-Pack, and popped it. So the message here is 2 things. One, make sure you go check out Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. Use the code PrepperTalk. That'll save you $10 at checkout. Get your emergency antibiotics. You can get a Z-Pack in there. That I should have just used mine. But the other thing is the day or 2 after I was like, fine. The best book showed up in the mail. You know what book that is? I told you I was getting it.
I don't. I thought you already had the Nicola Palian one.
It just came. I ordered.
Oh, yours just showed up? Okay.
It finally showed up. I was like, I could have used this. I'm like, I could have used all these. And I just already started going through it. I'm like, oh, this is a good remedy for people with rough lungs. This is a good remedy for people with asthma. And I'm like, highlighting, saving. I'm like, next time, this is what we're doing. So, guys, make sure you check that out. You can see a link for that on preppertalkradio.com. Go to our books and recommendations. We've got a link to that, so you can go check that out and get that book.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way to start off the conversation for balance, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously I grew up not being an herbalist. I'm still not an herbalist or anything, but I prefer to take that route. And I think a lot of you who are listening definitely prefer to take that route as well and stay away from the medications. But, sometimes you don't have time for that. Sometimes you just don't have time, and we don't live healthy enough to where we're constantly putting those good foods into our body. And there's got to be some kind of balance there between the modern medicine, we'll call it, and herbalism, whatever else you want to call it. So, yeah, I kind of struggle with, and I do avoid taking any medication prescribed by a doctor as much as possible. But sometimes you just kind of have to swallow the pill, right?
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the point of like, you have to do what makes sense for you in the moment, and focusing on the long-term effects, the pros and cons of what's going to happen as a result of doing whatever you're doing, right? And then Anthony throwing in there, don't forget the blackberry brandy. Right? There's so many different things you could be doing. Make sure prepping is part of that. And really what I want to say more is make sure learning is part of that. Because your prepping journey is nothing if you're not learning and growing throughout it. And I think that's where I find the most peace in this whole process. Like the three of us, the hosts of this show, like we run rampant in prepping. Like there is not a real true balance for us because we're always researching topics and content for the next episode.
Well, the question is, what does balance mean, right? I mean,
okay.
So we look at the two different sides of it. We start out from when I was a child, where I'm always saying, look to the past to prepare for the future, right? So we look to the past. Did they rely on medications like we do now? No, not even close, right? So that is a big part of my preps. And there is the modern take on that as well, with essential oils and all that, which I think have some value. I mean, some significant value. Some of it is snake oil, and I know some of you have commented on that here in the past. Snake oil has only changed form into essential oils, and I think to some extent that's probably true. But we are, in our family, we're heavy into essential oils, and that's because we have kids that work at doTERRA and such. And so I won't plug that, but we have a good in there. So we get to try lots of great things. But what I guess I was trying to say about normal is that this saying keeps coming to mind, and it is, I forget the author. It says to be how does it go? To be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no measure of health. That is not normal, right? It is not normal to be, in this day and age, well adjusted. If you ask me, that's my opinion, right? So balance in prepping is the difference between normal, I'm using air quotes, and where our ancestors lived, which was prepping all the time. That was their lifestyle. Welcome, Paris.
Hey.
So what balance? Okay, let's go back to normal. Understanding normal, right? I don't like being normal. I don't want to be normal as the world sees it. I think that's why I love all my prepper friends so much, because this is traditional living, what we're trying to get back to. The roots of liberty and freedom and working hard, and then at the end of the day you're like, man, I sweated hard today, and now I'm eating call butter that I grew myself. All the ingredients came from my little farm or my property, right? Not having to worry about supply chain issues, not having to worry about, is there enough toilet paper at the grocery store for me to go get, a new pack, and can I order it on the app? Like, I don't want to worry about all that stuff. And so prepping created a buffer zone for me. So first and foremost, I don't have to worry about ever having to order something on the app and getting it in time for my next bowel movement, right? Like, I don't have to worry about that crap. That's an SHTF situation. If you have to go and you don't have paper and you don't have a bidet, like, you're using your fingers, right? And then you're washing them off. Like, you're an old t-shirt. You don't want that imbalance in your life. And so if you have a storehouse in your home with 90-day or 100 days or a year supply of things, like 100 years is my goal. That's what I'm working towards, to have it outlive my entire family. But no, it's just, you can go crazy with prepping. And I know people right now, there's a lot of people who've watched a certain show that just happened, Leave the World Behind on Netflix. And they went into this panic and they're freaking out. And now they're trying to mass prep real fast. And what's interesting is you're seeing it. Some of the articles I've read, it's happening on the liberal side and it's happening on the conservative side. And a lot of liberals that I'm hearing are saying, well, our conservative friends that are doing this already should be helping us. They should be providing us some of their food. No, You're not entitled to that. You need to get your balance and get your balance fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with taking it that route and jumping into it. If you haven't jumped in, if you haven't got started, jump in. I'm all in for that. But that is definitely more difficult to balance, especially when your family's not bought in, you don't have a community. Let me say that. That is when I think balance is very difficult to handle. And I think we all struggle with it. At least I'll speak for myself. In our own family, trying to accommodate the things of the world. Hey, we want to go on vacation. Hey, we want to buy a new car, or whatever it might be, right? How do you balance that? How do you compromise and say, okay, we do need a new vehicle, but we also need to add to our 1 year food storage, or whatever it may be. That kind of balance, especially at first, was really difficult for me too. I mean, definitely conflict within the marriage, within the family. Me seeing what I see and my spouse not seeing it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think, where my mind goes when we're talking about balance. Because, like I mentioned, I think life is prepping. It's for me, it's not about the worldly things. It is preparedness. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Do you think you'll ever reach a point in your life where you're not prepping or you stop prepping?
Well, I would like to stop. Excuse me. I'd like to stop calling it prepping, right?
Okay.
And that's where I've started the kind of the homestead. It's a work in progress. It's going to be my entire life, which I'm happy to do. I mean, that's where I want to be next. And it's true would be called prepping, but it's really just called lifestyle, right? Changing your lifestyle. Living life on my own terms, right? Whereas I was born into these terms, and I am trying to change those terms and live according to my newly found knowledge and wisdom, whatever you want to call it.
I think that life, if you're going to be on this earth, you should learn how to be self-reliant. You should learn how to be resilient. And whether you follow Stoicism, you follow Christianity, or you just follow reason, which, by the way, Christianity and Stoicism follow. Anyways, you're going to realize that nobody's coming to save you. Your problems are your problems. And God has given you the capacity to solve your problems if you'll just take a deep breath, connect with Him, and move forward in faith. You'll know what to do. And I found in doing that, one of the big things that I want to, and the other thing is that there's people in this world that genuinely want to destroy your peace, and so you have to prepare against those things. You have to prepare. If everybody was just, there's this happy-go-lucky idea that most conservatives and Christians have. It's like, oh, everybody's good. Everybody's wants the same thing. No, there's people in this world that will kill you, slit your throat, and then go eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and slit your kid's throat and rape your children and women. They don't care. There's people in this world that will do that and are doing it. So we've got to realize that there's real evil. We don't want to be like the sky is falling and, crazy about, oh my gosh, every second of every day we could hit a panic attack. So that's to me, this is the balance, is realizing I'm going to do my best to live a good life and leave people alone to live their good life. I'm going to also prepare, though, for those people in this world who want to wreck my life and get up in my business and change and I need to defend myself. I need to be able to not be on the aggressive attack, but be on the defense. And you can't be on the defense if you're a mealy mouse. If you're a pansy, you're not going to win. And call it a prepper, call it whatever. I just call it self-reliant, strong individual. Like if whatever life hits me with, I mentally know I can find a solution. I have prepared with food and water and money and gold and silver and other resources, that I have a few things that, okay, if something happens, I have a few resources too. Is that prepping? Yes, I guess. But to me, it's like a lifestyle. That's
Yeah.
being smart in a world where we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Mother Nature has been trying to kill us. Just Mother Nature alone has been trying to kill us for centuries, let alone our fellow man. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, like there's been just this week in Utah, we've got 2 storms that have hit, and actually 3 technically, but one of them had a snow squall, which was beautiful to be in. It wasn't very long; it just happened real quick. But it's like there are parts of the country right now that have no power. Like there's places, like, I think there's over 15,000 people in California that still don't have power, haven't had it all week because of these storms. There are places in North Carolina, no power. And you shared a post on our social media, Shane, that showed it. Like there are places all over, like, where people just don't have power. That's part of this whole resist the new way of living and be resilient. Like rise and shine. Like there's got to be a better word for it all, but like, yeah, are we rebels? Yeah, we're different. We're going to buck the system. Are we resistors? Like, yeah, we resist the on-demand lifestyle for a more traditional, more fulfilling, more meaningful life with God, our family, and our country, with people who are trying to be like-minded, with people who want to think critically, to problem solve. Like the challenges that we come across in our life will either make us or break us. Right? We'll either endure or die. And it's like, man, endurance, prepping is part of the whole endurance race of life.
At first, in my opinion.
And it teaches you how to have a home store. It teaches you how to have a localized supply chain. It teaches you how to be somewhat impervious, hopefully, with your community to the world. And it's like, what are we striving for? We're striving for peace and balance. Like when I first found out about the word prepping, I was like, well, that's kind of me. Like I'm prepared for these things. Am I fully prepared for those things? No. Like when I first found out about prepping, it was Doomsday Preppers, and I was like, well, watching the shows, and I'm just laughing the whole time, like, that's crazy because I already did that. I didn't do a bunker. I didn't need a bunker. I didn't do but I'm like, I always had a 96-hour kit. I always had a big food storage. I had soaps. I had like all the stuff that I need for my normal life stockpiled for at least 90 days. Like always. That's just how I grew up. Like my parents had a year's supply of almost everything. And when we went through the crap, we were fine. Like if my dad didn't get paid for 6 months to a year, we'd survive. And it's like we had everything. And we knew, okay, we just have to endure this season for a little while. You know, tighten the belt and roll up your sleeves, endure the season for a little while because we can rebuild. Mm-hmm. And it's like the journey of prepping, like people will go through the hoard modality or mindset, and they're like, I've got everything's scarce and I need more. And then they'll get kind of past that into the abundance and like, I can fix this. It's like the old bionic man, $1 million man. We can build it bigger and stronger and better, and I could put trees in my yard that produce fruit. And I don't know, it's so funny because we're so fragile when we live in the society and with the society's modalities.
Well, especially when we want to cater to the fact that there are men and women in this world that want to tyrannically rule over us, control us because they think they know better. We can, the whole idea that they're going to save the planet and by telling us not to breathe anymore, because human beings breathing is now creating this global warming problem and this climate change issue. Like, no, we've been on this planet for, several thousand years, we're not, or whatever. And we're not going to ruin it in the next 5 to 10 because we're breathing. There's the tyranny. If you look back over history and you see the civilizations that had governments that wanted to rule over them and tyrannically kings and tyrants, they just didn't last. And because there was the rebellion eventually. The people, the societies, the civilizations where everybody was given the freedom and the liberty and the opportunity to flourish, that's where they all could build from their own desires, their own needs and wants. and maintain that, that's where civilizations have flourished and lasted the longest. And so the idea that somebody's going to control you or take control, or you're dependent upon someone, some government agency or entity to take care of you, that's the mindset of eventual demise. You know, if you want to really build a society, you can build it with self-reliant, independent individuals who work interdependently and create something of great value. And that's scary to these tyrants. That's scary to the people who want to control the world. And you know, it's because they just, well, I can't let people do what they want, because what if they want bad things? Well, yeah, sure, there's plenty of those like you, and there's the good people who are strong are going to build a society. I just, there's so many people that are fighting against, for example, capitalism. And what's the best economy? Even China switched over to a more capitalistic style because they knew that that was the way to flourish, by allowing the markets to ebb and flow and to create supply and demand and to set prices. Just letting that competition flow and that freedom to do that, it settled down. Like it came. One of the big challenges that everybody thought was going to happen with like eBay was that there was going to be this whole issue. There was these escrow companies that came in and said, well, nobody's going to be honest. They're going to post bad stuff, and then people will buy things and they'll never send the money, and nobody will be honest. Well, it turned out that they didn't ever make any money because people were actually honest. They posted good things and they sent the money and paid for the things. And that's just how people were. And so to me, that's the self-reliant mentality, is when you build people up and edify them to the point where they know they can do it, you're going to find a society where you're going to have resilience and self-reliance. And that, to me, is another definition, I guess, of prepper.
Yeah, finding that balance between, again, kind of going back to where we are the ones that they want to control. We ourselves are trying to take our own lives back, have our own control, right? Yet still live within the system and trying to break out. So that's where I see, for me at this point, the balance problem is. How do I stand up and resist doing something practical and not something that's going to get me thrown in jail, right? And still be law abiding, using the air quotes again. We won't go into that, but how do I find that? Yeah, exactly, Scott. How do I find that balance in my life to where I feel like I'm doing everything I can, not just to prepare my family, but to wake others up, as well as, I don't want to use the word fight, but wrestle against the system. That's, for me at this point in my prepping career, what I call it, is where the balance, where I struggle with the balance. But we can definitely talk about, my past decade of trying to find balance in I need this, I need that, I need this. How do I balance X with Y, and so forth? And I think that's probably where most people are nowadays. Is, okay, I need the X, but I also need Y. And how do I make that balance in my equation?
Well, it's interesting because I'm going to share Practical Civilian pointed this out. He's like, the way he lives is a regressive way. Let me find the other. Okay, here we go. Mm-hmm. People tell me because I live regressively, but that the more technology advances, the more humans regress. It's been proven that Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, etc., had larger brains because they had to. Okay, so I want to point this out for a second. One huge movement is homesteading movement right now, right? Huge. It's bigger than prepping. It's because people are trying to get back to a sustainable way to live, a more harmonic way to live, to being back to the land, back to our natural state. Less technology, less interference, more peace. And that's the whole point of like why we prep, is so that we have peace, right? Peace in our heart, peace in our mind. But it's like self-reliance. It's the same thing. Like we become self-reliant so that we can have more peace. If I don't have to freak out, like if my kid gets a cut or falls and and breaks their arm, like, and I know what to do, or like if I have food, and when I lose a job and I don't have an income coming in, and I don't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from for the next 6 months, like that's a huge success, and the world doesn't support it or applaud it, but everyone in our circle does, right? And especially if you've been there, like I know you both have been there, when you're like broke as broke can get, but you can still eat because you walk down into your pantry and you're like, oh, 1989 can of chili, that was a good year. Pop it open and you're like, delicious, no bacteria, we're good to go, right? Or
It still smells okay.
Just go to the backyard and pull an apple out of the tree. It is such a feeling of peace. And that's like, for me, where the balance comes from. The balance comes from when you kind of get to that harmonic moment of, I'm not panicking about anything. I'm financially more stable because I've done the resistance training to become more resilient and become more of a prepper, right? I've got the pantries, I've got the storehouse. Like that's where that peace comes from, and that balance comes from, because then I'm not chasing like, oh, I put this, and this still. And even then it's like, okay, what if something, my wife asked this just the other day. She's like, what if something crazy happens? We got to completely pivot. I'm like, okay, we figure it out. And she's like, you're so calm about it. I'm like, when you've gone through crap, it's easier to keep going through it. Like when you've navigated your way through a cesspool and another one pops up on your path and you can't get around it, and you got to go through it. It's like, oh, okay, been here, done that.
Yeah. I know I'll be able to wash myself off on the other side.
Yeah. I'm like, we'll find a creek. We'll clean up. I clean up pretty good, but like, yeah, you get more resilient the more you endure stuff. And that's the most beautiful thing about life. Like there's a quote that says something along the lines of like always be aware or not aware. It's like if you find an old man in a line of work where men die young, never sell that guy short, because that guy shouldn't be there, and he's too bad to not be. Right? I don't know the right quote. I completely destroyed it. For anyone that wants to throw it in the comments, please fix me.
I know which one you're talking about, but yeah, I couldn't cite it either. But Scott, you shared a video with us. Was it yesterday? The guy with using the analogy of the holding a bar of soap.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Right. An older cowboy, kind of and he compared it to a horse, right?
And children.
He said riding a horse and raising kids is like holding a bar of soap.
It's like holding a bar of soap. There you go. If you hold it too tight, it's going to slip out of your hands. Don't hold it tight enough, it's going to slip out of your hands. So where's that balance? I'm going to use that word, right? Since that's our discussion. And that only comes with experience. This guy's got the experience, right?
Yeah.
This old cowboy, he knows what he's talking about.
Another thing that comes to my mind, and the way that I learn, and I don't know if everybody or anybody else learns this way, but a lot of times I learn by comparison, or I learn by not having something in my life for a little while, how much I really needed to have it in my life. So, and I also learn a lot by comparison. And being as a financial advisor, I read stories and have clients come to me that are in situations where they're in debt up to their eyeballs. They have no idea what their budget is. They have no idea where they're going. They have no idea. They have nothing in savings, hardly anything in retirement. They barely know. And to me, that's not balanced. How many Gen Z and Gen Xers are like, I mean, it's even they even call themselves this, the dinkwads, the dual income, no kids with a dog. It's an acronym, and it's like
I hadn't heard the with a dog.
Dinkwad.
Dinkwad. And so they'll go out and they're like, well, we want to buy whatever we want to buy. We want to own whatever we want. We want to, get this and get that, and we want to get all the furniture and get the house, get the apartment, get everything. And I'm like, do you have any money in savings? Do you have any money? What if crap hits the fan? Are you going to be okay? Like my first question to these people. Yeah, they might be making six figures. Some people would put them on a level of success by doing that. To me, I'm like, I don't care how much money you're making. Do you have resources that if anything was to happen to you or anything, because your employer any day could walk up and say, you know what, we're going a different direction. Sorry about this, that, or the other, you're fired. That's not balance to me. Somebody who is balanced is somebody who says, look, if I get fired tomorrow, no big deal. I got plenty of money. I got plenty of resources. I can do it. But if you're freaking out and anxious about what somebody might do or things like that, you're not in a good, that's not balance to me. Balance is somebody who's, and here's one thing that I recognize about balance is that, use this analogy of a wagon wheel, and a wagon wheel has different spokes on it. And there might be times in your life when you're working on one of those wheels to one of those spokes, if you will, to get it strengthened and get it out there. And you might be off balance, might not be a perfectly round wheel of your life. And so you're kind of out of balance as you're working on some of the things that are going on in your life. And so for a period of time, you might feel out of balance, but as long as your goal is to eventually bring it into balance with everything else, that balance, life is, to me, life is a balance of periods of time of imbalance. Does that make sense?
That's a great point.
100%.
Yeah, like Mike, of course, brought it up, and then of course you went deeper into the financial preparedness. And I think that is, for most families, one of the main reasons for divorce, right, is arguing about finances, right? And that's no exception in my relationship. And also like Practical saying here, go and read his quotes here. I won't put them all up on the screen here, but finding that balance between, of course, like I was saying before, I need X, I need Y, but I also need savings, right? I need to prepare financially, and it takes time. That balance takes a lot of time, and I love how you put that, Parrish. It's moments of balance and imbalance. How that wheel rotates and it wobbles back and forth, but hey, it's staying upright. It might be totally imbalanced and all over the place, but it's still upright and moving down the road. But definitely interesting what Practical is saying here. And I'd like to get into more of this stuff if it doesn't take us too far off track. But having balance in what's preparing for what's coming and what we see on the other side. And Practical, obviously, he sees something slightly different than I see, and that's another thing that I see all the time is, okay, we've got to prepare so we can get through this time, so we can come out the other side and we'll be the powerful ones because we prepared, right? We had the real money. We can buy all the assets up and come out the other side. I've got a different view than that we won't get into, but how do you balance that and not have too much of this or too little of that? And I like Practical says here, I'll put this up here. It says even, did I click the right one here? Even precious metals will be worthless at some point. Yes, I totally agree. But they will have a role for a period of time. How long? I don't know. So how do I balance that part of my wheel with the other things? The food that I can actually eat. You can't eat gold and silver. You hear that. We hear that all the time. You can't.
You can drink silver. I don't want to hear any of that. You can't. Colloidal silver is
right. That's not. That's
the elites. The elites have been putting gold flakes on their steaks for the last little while here to get super extra fancy. I was watching another reel the other day, and it was Brad Lee. He gets on there and says, "You guys need to start preparing. And the best thing to do is get guns and ammo so you can prepare and protect." And these guys getting food storage, they're gonna have problems with us guys who have guns and ammo. And I'm like, you know what? The guys with food storage have guns and ammo too. And I posted a link. I said, if you come to my house with guns and ammo, expecting to leave with food, you're gonna leave having eaten some lead. And so there's some balance too. It's like, don't be the one guy that's gonna come at it as the werewolf prepper with the guns and ammo. Don't be the one guy that's going to have no guns and ammo and only food. You got to have both.
And don't be the solo artist. Like, you cannot get through this as a solo act. Like, whatever this is. Like, I can't remember which Indian tribe it is. But it's one of the most cool. I had this conversation like 3 weeks ago, so I'm spotty, but the way the family set it up, they lived in in pole homes, and basically the community would break down, and you'd have the parents would raise the kids would grow up and get married, and then they would live in the same home, and you'd have multi-generations in the home, and then your little community is all there nearby, right? And if something happens to the, say you're the young couple, right? Something happens to you, your parents and your home, everyone else in your home would rally around to help you through that challenge, help you find the solution. And then if the solution couldn't be met within the home and within that little house, it'd go to the community. And the elders of these tribes would set it up that way. And I'm like, man, they're so much smarter than we are. Now, all we do now is legislate the crap out of people so they can't find a solution. So they can't, they're not allowed to work together, right? And I look at what we're trying to do, each of us in our own different way. It's like we're trying to get through whatever comes our way and come out better for it on the other side. Right? Every prepper believes that they can come out better for it on the other side. And yeah, Mike Lee or whatever his name is, good try. He is going to have a lead sandwich. And all those guys that are just going guns galore, they're going to have lead sandwiches because we've got our groups.
Yep.
And what's cool about that is then we can resupply our ammo and we'll have backups for our backups. That's what they don't understand. It's like there's so many stories in military history where the people who were fortified and could stay in their shelter the longest won.
Mm-hmm.
It's as soon as you allow your fortress to be breached that there's a problem. And it's like, just live a way where you're unbreachable. Oh, there you go.
That also comes to, we talk about, of course, when we open the show and the show talk about God, family, country, right? I want to tweak that a little bit. Of course, God, number one, family, community.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
Because country is obviously a very big picture. I don't think there's anything we can do about that, but we can affect our community. We can maybe affect our state, on more local levels. I'm not going to go up down political. I'm not the political kind of guy, but community as in even smaller. Our family, our local boundaries, our neighborhoods, maybe small cities and communities and such. I think that is important to find that kind of balance there. Obviously, family that's hard enough right there, right? But to connect with a community of like-minded individuals is probably easier than convincing your family or getting that balance with your family with everything you need to be prepped, to be prepared, right?
Well, no man lives on an island, and we're not isolated or live in a vacuum. There's so many different things that we have to do in life. Like, for example, we had our last episode, we had Carrie on, who is a proponent for making sure that we understand and are aware of what's going on in our schools. As parents who have children, and whether it's grade school or high school or even college, university, we need to be aware of what's really happening with our community. We have organizations in our political, like you said earlier, you don't want to get into politics, and I agree. There's some boundaries there, but we gotta be doing our civil duties to make sure we're putting good people in positions that they're making good decisions. And if they're not, we need to get them out of there. And we need to do our part. And so here's the situation. I've got to read my scriptures. I've got to prepare. I've got to know all the financial things. I've got to have know what's going on locally and statewide and countrywide politically. I got to know what's happening to my kids. I got to know what's going on with my wife. I got to know what's going on with my job. You know what I mean? Like before you know it, you're like, your brain is like, what else do I need to do? Well, the good news is you're capable. Recognize you're capable. Take a deep breath and say, okay, what parts of my life do I need to either focus on? Because we got to have, that's the balance. That, to me, that's where the balance comes in. It's like, not only are we balancing our preps, but we're also balancing our life, and we're becoming more well-rounded as individuals, as civilians, as citizens of this nation. We're becoming well-rounded as husbands, as fathers, as wives, as children. We just need to be, I think those people that get so hyper-focused in one thing lose so much when you can just broaden your horizon, expand your perspective, then just recognize, hey, wow, there's more out there than just my little perspective.
Yeah, again, thinking better to be a jack of all trades and master of one, right? We've talked about that saying before. And I think that's absolutely right there, Parrish, that is, and I think, modern society has gone away from that because of the education system, a lot of different factors that way, to where people want to specialize and they become hyper focused, like you said, on certain things and forget the other thing. There's no balance. There's only one side, right? I think it's much better to be completely well balanced on that teeter-totter. That's what you described to me as that's a teeter-totter, right? How do you do all of your roles as a father and provider and everything and keep that teeter-totter balanced? And I think it's better to be more well-rounded rather than hyper-focused.
So as the resident ADHD freakazoid in our group, I am a dopamine hound. I love chasing it, and that throws me down rabbit holes. And I will get so focused and hyper focused on something that I have to learn the skill or I have to learn the knowledge, right? And we've had those conversations. And you guys are like, dude, you gotta calm down, or you gotta do this. But there's a huge distraction element. And depression to deal with. But like my distraction element is like, you guys have known for months I've been working on my house, trying to get my house finished so I can sell it. Well, guess what's happening?
You're still working on it.
I'm still working on it. I'm not getting it done. Because then I'm like, squirrel. Oh, hyperfocus. Poof. And then I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to finish the trim. Squirrel. Oh, hyperfocus. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I got to finish the doors. And it's like, I'm so close. I am so stinking close. Actually,
I believe you, Scott. I believe in you. I know you can do it, but I've also gotten to the point where like, I'll believe it when I see it.
I know. I'm going to send pictures soon because I'm like, it's looking so good. It is looking, I spent last Saturday just crushing it. And guess what that did for my balance and my dopamine? Like that gave me so much calm.
Centered
it recentered it. It kind of disrupted the discord in my mind enough for me to kind of go, oh, we're actually making progress. And it's like, as a lifelong prepper, a self-reliant individual, like you have to have a network of people helping you also realign, because your balance can get way out. And so that's what, like, this is I'm calling myself out here. Like I'm behind on where I should be with my house. And part of the stuff that helps me get back on track has been you guys holding me accountable and using the phrase, I'll believe it when I see it. Right. And because this is not the first time one of you have said that to me. It's probably the fifth or sixth time.
Well, we said it to each other. That's the good news.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're saying it to each other also. Like when we went to lunch and then you guys stayed shooting and I didn't, you guys were probably like, I'll believe him when I see something happen. And it's like, that's fine because that holds me accountable. It's like, there's so much that can throw us off in anything we do, especially in prepping. And you can get super confused with what to do next and what to focus on. But the important thing is keep making progress. And most importantly, keep becoming a better person. Because I'm a better person now than I was 10 years ago.
Amen.
Hands down. I like myself 1,000% more now. Even fat version me, like fat freedom guy, like way better now than 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. Like I am happier with who I'm becoming, and I'm hopeful for who I will become as I continue to learn and grow and develop and problem solve and endure, right? One of my favorite quotes is come what may and love it. Whatever the challenge is, find a way to appreciate it because it's teaching you something.
Yeah. My wife and I had an experience recently, and it was a challenge. I'm not going to lie. And it was one of those challenges where we were like, FML, right? The F my life kind of a challenges. And I just told her, I looked her in the eyes and said, we didn't do anything stupid to deserve this. So it's clearly got to be something that that God has put us through for a purpose. There's people out in this world that have problems because they're idiots. They did stupid stuff and they deserve what they get. And then there's bad things that happen to people that just happen. And if you're not doing everything you're supposed to do, you're living your life as best you can, and bad thing happens to you, that's something to learn. So that's where I jump on that bandwagon of come what may and love it. Learn to love it. Try to love it. Do your best to love it. And it's not easy. Some days I want to punch the wall. But today, in fact, I was like, I need to do something where I feel like I'm making some progress in my life. Like I need to stop procrastinating some of the things that I've been procrastinating, so I feel better about myself. And I went to my stack of I went to my procrastination folder, and it was a stack of 20 or 30 pages of things on my desk, and I cranked through them, and I was like, you know what? I felt good. Today was I got through a bunch of stuff I've been putting off. Get it behind me now, or at least move it down the football field a little bit. And now I went and took a lot of those pages, most of those pages, and I'm shredding them. I put them in the shred pile. I'm like, oh man, do I feel much better? Because I was so hyper focused on other things. I put things off, and now I'm doing that, and now I just felt better.
You do get a little hyper focused too there, Paris, I think.
I do. Yeah.
I think I probably, I saw a clip yesterday. It was a Joe Rogan clip. I don't know who his guest was. I'm sure some of you recognize this. And, and I realized this is kind of how I've approached my life a little bit, but I'm not going to claim, this is me or anything, but when something goes wrong, say good. And Joe has mentioned this is what he's adopted in his life as well. So I didn't get promoted. Oh, dang it. Okay, good. Right. I didn't get the job I wanted. Good. Something went bad. Something went wrong. Good. Right. Find something good about that in your life. And I think it's, for me in my life, I think it's more like what you said, Parrish, is that if I didn't get something that maybe I was asking for or hoping for, I realized that maybe that's not something my Father in heaven wanted me to have. Right. That, okay, good. And I have taken that approach for a long time, but I maybe never put it into words or actually recognized it. Right. In my line of work, I'm bidding on projects, and sometimes I don't get a project that I want. But in the back of my mind, I know this is going to be a tough job. We may not come out ahead. I may lose money on this job, and I don't get the job. And I say to myself, okay, good, because it would have been a lot of stress and so on and so forth. And so I've kind of always taken that approach, but I think it makes a lot of sense to put words to it and say, you know what, man, my car just broke down. I don't have the money to fix it. Good. What good is going to come from that, right? Take that mindset and then, and then I think that's going to keep you from being hyper-focused as well. And so I just wanted to throw that out as kind of my final comments to you.
Have you guys ever heard of Myron Golden?
No.
He's a public speaker. He's big in finance. He's very Christian, and he's partnered with like Russell Brunson over at ClickFunnels and all this other stuff. But he talks about how great it is to have struggle in one of his things. He's like, God wants you to struggle because then you'll go to him, and he can teach you better than anything you can learn yourself. And he's like, and what you don't realize is that a lot of the things that you're struggling with are the lessons he's giving you that you've asked for, either consciously or subconsciously. Mm-hmm. When you want to avoid pain, more pain comes. When you embrace pain, it becomes joy. And I'm like, it's different. It's fascinating. And it's like, but it's true in my experience. When I embrace the suck, it gets better. Mm-hmm. And then I can start learning to get through it. David Goggins.
Put it into perspective. When you embrace it, you realize it's smaller than it was before you embraced it. Mm-hmm. And when it's smaller, you can handle it.
And it's like, and look at David Goggins for a second. That dude is the toughest dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
I've ever witnessed in life.
Hyper focused, you would say, though. No balance.
He is constantly looking for things to do that will suck. Mm-hmm. Things to do that will be horrible. Because he wants to see if he can do it. And he's always testing his limits. And I'm like, okay. Personally, I don't see that there's any balance in that either. I think that's kind of crazy. So what is the application for me in my life to have higher quality of life, learn through all these things, persevere through all these things, and most importantly, be the example for my kids that they're going to want to see that and exemplify the things that I'm doing that are good.
Yeah. And that's another thing I want to just reiterate is that balance is different for everybody. And you might be in a season of your life where you have to focus on your family. You might be in a season of your life where you're in a health crisis and you've got to focus there. You might be in a season of your life where you're in a bad place financially, and so you got to be focused there. You might be in a season in your life where everything's great. Like everything's great and you're like, man, does it get better? The one thing that I know for sure is that change is the only constant. And if you're in a season right now of whatever it is, you're going to be in a season of something else in a minute. And then that's going to be a season of something else in a minute.
Yeah, like we say in Utah, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
I mean, I was just pondering, and I think about weird stuff. I was just pondering the other day, I'm 49 years old. How did I get here? How did I make it? When I was 24, I was going through something and I never thought I'd make it. Here I am.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 30, I was going through something I'm going to die. This is such a huge obstacle in my life. My kid, this, my wife, that way, whatever, my business, this, that, the other. Like, here I am. I made it. I made it through. I'm alive. And I'm, yes, as far as all, according to the political regimes that are out there, I'm actually very privileged because I'm a white male Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The reality is we're blessed beyond what we deserve. And when we realize that, and I realize there are people going through some major things right now, and I salute you, and I have a lot of empathy and compassion for you as you're struggling. And if you have resources to help and reach out to help, we would please do. But I'm just saying that there's a season. Everybody's in a season of their life, and it will change. And just be ready for that. And that's what part of balance is recognize. I've been poor, and I'm pretty rich right now. I'm not like a millionaire or anything, but yeah. I've had to go to the grocery store and put food back because I couldn't afford it with my EBT card. And now I can go to the grocery store and I don't have to, it doesn't matter what's on the conveyor belt. I can buy whatever I need and I can help the guy behind me. And so just whatever you're going through, recognize that if you're balanced, you'll be able to take it for what it is and move forward.
That's a really good point. It's like, you just have to, one, be open, and two, willing to go through it. And a lot of times the negative side of things and the imbalance come because we're opposed to experiencing something different. We're opposed to growth. We're opposed to a simpler way of life. Like most of the distractions that keep us from doing the things we're trying to do are because we're not focusing enough on our goals and embracing the suck enough to get through them. And I've noticed that's a huge factor in my life. And so I'm trying to set goals, and not just set goals. Like I don't do New Year's resolutions. I set goals. And I've been working on setting my goals for this year. I know today it's live. It's the 10th. I'm still finalizing my goals, but because I want to break them down to 90-day targets of what that next 90 days looks like. And it's not for 2024. It's for my future of me. I want to become a wise old man someday. I don't want to become a lame, bothersome, cranky, kids go to the other side of the street to walk or past my house type of guy.
Grumpy old man.
No good for anybody, right? I don't want to be a grumpy old man. Like I want to be someone who always provides value in every circle that I go to. Even if that value is listening. And so there's always going to be imbalance in our life. There's always going to be pressure in one part of our life that we don't like, right? And that's forcing us to change. Or we're just going to become callous to it. But I think if we can focus on the good, focus on the learning, focus on what am I getting out of this lesson? What am I getting out of why am I doing this prep, right? And have everything, find a meaning for everything that you're doing. It'll give you a better semblance of balance in your life. It has for me, and that's what I'm trying to lean into this year. Yes, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Or in the movie Holes.
I'm with you, Scott.
If you've seen Holes, there's a scene where the Sigourney Weaver as a child is like digging holes with her grandpa, and she's like, "I'm tired, Grandpa. I don't want to do this anymore." And he's like, "It's too damn bad. Keep digging." And it's like,
That's a good show.
there's like, yeah, there's gonna be rough times, but it's like we've just got to keep moving forward, keep digging, keep living, and find joy in that journey wherever you are in prep, wherever you are in your trials, wherever you are. Like, just know that you are not alone, and there is some joy to be found, and hang in there.
And join us over on our Facebook page, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. I'm accepting new people there every single day, and it's great to converse with you guys. So would love to continue this conversation there.
Amen. Well, thank you guys for being part of our live this week. I know we're out of time. Thank you for all the fantastic comments. And remember, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and it's me with you. If you want to be better prepared, you got to do the work. If you want to have less stress in your life and more peace in your life, you've got to do the work. We can help you get there. Join our page. Follow us on all the channels. You've got things you can add to the conversation that we're going to go, wow. So we'd love to see that from you as well. So thanks for tuning in and not tuning out. Thanks for being ready-minded with us. And remember, you are listening to Prepper Tech Radio. We are radio for the ready-minded, even though we're more of a podcast for the prepared, but we're there for you. Have a great week. We'll catch you guys on the next week.